Hello, and today we're going to talk about crisis and conflict in the church. Yes, believe it or not, even in the church we do sometimes have conflicts. And our book tells us it might be better to let the conflicts arise rather than let them dissipate or let them just blow them under the carpet or whatever, because we can learn from each conflict. And not only that, we can learn how to deal with conflicts more by dealing with conflicts. Crisis and conflict. In church fights, we find there's three kinds of these, starting off with intrapersonal conflict. That's where the conflict is inside of you, inside of the one person. And then we have the interpersonal. That's when it comes from two or more people, not just one person's internal conflict, but an external personal conflict. Then we have the substantive conflict. That's a real conflict that comes about by what time are we going to start the morning service, or should we paint our chairs blue or brown, or anything like that. And there's very lot to say about conflict, and it's a mixture of all different types of conflicts and things. And know thyself then is the beginning of wisdom as we prepare to address church conflicts. We know ourselves, our internal being, and we know how we are spiritually, humanly, and we just know how we react to certain things and feelings and any kind of conflicts. We know ourselves what's going to happen, And that's one of the best ways it starts off. Wisdom is learned about the self. Then we have the conflicts over the facts of a situation. It's like with Paul, of all the ways I preach myself as often as I preach Christ. That's about knowing of himself. He is aware and he knows himself that he does that he has so much Christ in him that sometimes he gets off on the preaching his own life instead of the life of Christ. It was, so not what we want to hear. We want to hear Christ's life. Even though he may be living a lot like Christ, we still want to hear about Christ, not about Paul. And there's a conflict over the facts of the situation. Is there enough money to pay for the next show? Or conflicts over methods or means. Do we find a problem or solution to this problem? How are we going to find that, and everything else? And conflict over ends or goals, like what are we going to do after we accomplish this or that? And what are we going to do with the money we make from that, and such as that, Conflict over values. And values are important, so different people have different values, but most people have very good values, we use our judgment using those values. And some people do not have those same values, and they may be very good Christians. And this can also bring conflict in our church. And conflict has a positive role to play in the congregation. In conflict, a group is energized. This is kind of like what I was talking about a while ago. It's better to go on through these conflicts and find ways to resolve them, and everybody learns in that situation. And it makes the congregation more creative, and they learn how to take some of these skills home and use in their house and in their life and in their business, and it's just an altogether good thing. So always conflict in the church or home or everything, it's not a bad thing if we use it as a learning process. And then addressing conflict is, what are we going to learn from this? How are we going to deal with this? Congregational conflict, and obtain as much information as possible from both sides and from everybody. If we just heard one person tell us the stories about this or the stories about that, we may have a biased report or something. So we need to get all the information we can from as many people as we can, and buy as much time as possible. This is great too. The more time that goes by during this conflict, the more it has time to settle down, and the more space it puts between the actual conflict and the resolution, which allows for the people themselves to kind of work through it a little bit more. And it can also make their side stronger. So we want to put as much time between the conflict and the resolution as we can to make it easier on ourselves. Make an assessment of the individuals involved in the potential conflict. How mature are these people? Is it people who are always bringing up problems in the church? Are these the ones that are always starting little fights in the congregation? They do it every other Sunday, or is this a new happening? Is this a real legitimate thing? So we make an assessment of the individuals involved thoroughly. Take the emotional temperature of the conflict. This means, is it cold? Is it lukewarm? Is it hot? Hotsy-totsy? Is this going to be a big thing that could lead to the collapse of the whole congregation, or is this just a minor deal? No matter what, we deal with them, and we deal with them there on the spot. And let's see, we have to be sure everyone in the group knows all the facts of the situation. Ask someone to explain the history of the conflict. Refer the conflict to the proper committee for discussion and remediation. Yes, it may just be sent off to a different department of the church and let them deal with it. We may not have to use any of our pastoral knowledge in any way, but delay action until there has been time to manage a conflict. This is like what we talked about a while ago, delaying it as long as we can so we can figure it all out really good. And that's about it. The conflicts are always going to be happening, especially in churches, and we learn to deal with them through the Bible, a lot of what Jesus says and a lot of what Apostle Paul says. These people are always dealing with conflicts, and we use them and to the best of our ability. Thank you very much. This is Bob saying goodbye.